Welcome to Jung at Harp. This is episode number 168, How We Court Our Own Transformation. I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian Psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, a creative, a mentor, a coach, and we both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. So today we started our conversation off camera about caterpillars and butterflies and metamorphosis and what it actually takes to transform when we want something in our own lives to shift. So, GHC, what do you have to say about that? That might
I,
kick us off.
yeah, I would a lot. And it's interesting because when you were introducing us, I was thinking there's another part to that introduction that we've been forgetting, which is we
Yes.
have conversations at the
Right.
crux, or at that place where psychology and creativity merge, right? And I
Right.
just realized this is part of that story. And also, we want to say that this is a conversation. We come with a question, not with answers. And we invite you to be part of this. We're on this particular platform because it usually can let you take part in the conversation by putting stuff in the chat, and then we can bring it up, and you can be a very important part of this conversation. So this all started because I was thinking about, so what is the most recent experience of transformation that each of us have had? And I've been on this journey for a while of being fascinated by caterpillars. And it started with a question that I had that I sent to AI. And the question was,
Mm.
hey, wait a second. In the chrysalis, when the caterpillar goes to goo, what is that? Now, is that goo a caterpillar or a butterfly? What is that creature that is goo? And the answer came back that there is within that goo also something called the imaginal disc. No joke, that's what it's called, the imaginal disc. And in it has all the blueprints for, and even the parts of the imago. The imago is the final form of the animal. And so what happens is the caterpillar goes to goo, and then I didn't get this part yet, exactly what happens, whether the blueprints open up or the imaginal disc starts. But it changes. It gives the butterfly everything to turn into the caterpillar, everything to turn into a butterfly. And then the butterfly emerges. So I've been fascinated by this and thinking about this and thinking about how do I go to goo and blah, 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 blah. And then I was in a meeting with some friends the other day, and I was talking about this. And then I stopped and I admitted that while I am fascinated with what happens in the chrysalis, I don't really like butterflies. I don't really respect what they do in the world. I don't get it. And they're just so pretty and they flutter around and they don't have to seem to have any intention, or like you've never seen like a butterfly, I know, hello, my honey, hello, I don't know, whatever. So I said this, and one of the people that I said it to happens to really love animals and insects. And he was like, are you kidding? It's like butterflies. They, they fly. I mean, and I was saying they don't even fly. They just flutter around. And he was like, no, they fly to Mexico and, with a bunch of their friends. And then I'm writing down like fly to Mexico with friends. This is the next thing to do as a butterfly. But then he said, and it was just talking about, and he was also saying, they don't see what they look like.
Mhm.
They are seen by others. They
Mhm.
bring beauty into the world. The next person I admitted this to was my coach, and she said, "Are you kidding?" She said, "My thing is like pollinators. Butterflies are the second most important pollinators in the whole world." And so one of the things that I got from this is a little bit, there's more to this story, sorry, but there's different parts. My my sort of transformation coach has been saying to me, share your transformation, share. And I thought it was like I'm supposed to share with people what I've got. But what
Mm.
happened when I shared what I didn't get, when I shared authentically, where I was like, yeah, but I don't like butterflies. That's when things changed. That's when I started
Mhm.
getting, and people weren't like, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, they just opened up my eyes.
Yeah.
And this, I just want to say that this all came in part with something else, which was that I was also, this coach that's helping with transformation, we had goals. She would write out my goals for me, and she would say, like, say these goals every night when you go to bed. And I was like, okay, I'll say my goals every night when I go to bed. But I didn't. And so here I am paying her, asking her for help, and not doing the thing that she's asking me to do. And it's not even hard. I was neither sharing nor was I saying my goals. So one day, who knows why, about 2 weeks ago, I was like, wait a second. Why am I trying to do this thing the way she's telling me to do it? She's telling me to read it before bed, but transformation for me has always been combined with music. Why am I trying to do it without? So I took the goals that she'd written out for me, threw them into AI, and said, create for me a devotional poem based on these goals. And it printed something out, didn't like all of it, but I liked some of it. But I didn't even worry about that. The first thing I did is I put it down and I just played it. I played it and sang it, so, like literally. So like it was like something like divine. I've got it right here, and I've been writing all over it, and I keep changing it. But it's basically divine spirit of my life, guide me as I step forth into the light of my life. And I just kept that's just what it said. I just kept reading it, and there were anyway. So I took on this practice of I recorded it, and then I started listening to it when I ran. Turns out it was a great rhythm for running. So I would just listen to it over and over and over again. I would see what parts did not seem true, and then I would re-record it and re-record it. So I was taking on this practice of, basically, I took on the practice of finally, after a year of coaching, doing what she told me to do. But it was completely different, and it was in a way authentic to me. So, Kathleen, that's it's like, okay, tell me all about that, or what is your experience there? Like, I mean, let's you said something about liftoff when I told you this.
Yeah, I mean, as you're telling me this, going through this again, with those of you out there who are listening, I mean, part of what I'm struck by, there's several things, but the first is that it is in sharing and in the art of conversation, which is sharing, that we expand our own perspective, and our consciousness expands. And when our consciousness expands, then we have more access to our own energy centers. So your conversations with your friends about the butterfly and your feeling about the butterfly and their response about the butterfly actually helped your own connection to that butterfly energy in you increase and expand. And to begin to feel your own value as being a pollinator. I mean, because you are such a pollinator with your compositions and the sharing of your work and making it available for other harpists and musicians to play. So that there's an expansion that happens in the process of sharing with others, if it's a true sharing and a true dialectical process, which we engage in when we meet for Jung at Harp. So that's the one thing that stood out for me first. And then the second thing is that the idea of repeating your goals every night verbally or reading them just fell flat for you. There was no fire in that for you. The fire for you and how you express yourself is music. And that's been the case forever for you. And so when you took the suggestion, or psyche, I don't know that you consciously did it, but the unconscious got that together. It's like, okay, what's real for you? Where's the fire? Where's the motivation? And I think this is something that's so important for each of us, is to know where our own psychic energy is the technical word. Libido, life force, is another way of talking about it. Fire is the great image of it. Where is that central fire that is your essence that fuels you? And once you connected the repeating or the goals to that, something happened. Something happened.
It's funny that you say something happened because, well, I was just remembering when I was a little kid, and this is relevant when I came home and said, what is sex? What does it mean to have sex? And I was like 8. And my mother was like, well, the man's penis, blah, 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 blah. She played the thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, wait a second. Because I'd seen naked people. I was like, wait a second. How does that happen? How does that happen? And he said to me, something magical happens. Now, I listened to that, which may or may not have been helpful. But what I'm hearing is that in each case, something magical happens. And
well, yeah, it's magical because the ego consciousness can't make it happen. We can't logically, intellectually make it happen. But what the intellect can do is have self-reflection, self-awareness, and connect the dots, which is what you were doing with observing you're not doing this exercise she's
right,
prescribed, yet you're paying her. You're
right,
feeling stuck on some things, and you know that music is your inspiration. There's your fire. That's where you connect to your motivation, your motive power to move towards something different. So you connected those dots, and then the magic happens. So uh, yeah, it's not linear, but there is a connecting of the dots that are holding. Sometimes it's not even a linear connecting of the dots. It's more like a drawing of a circle, the magic circle, and putting everything in it. And then the
yeah.
magic happens.
Well, I just thought of something too, because I was thinking what happened. I was thinking 3 things. Was thinking what happened after I put it into song. I was thinking what happens often when I'm teaching people and they're not getting it. And I was thinking that here I've been kind of beating myself up because I'm like, well, I'm not doing what she's telling me to do. And then I just realized that that's how long it took.
Right.
That is how long it took. And so I'm just going to pull these other 2 things in there. When I started singing this song, there came a moment, and in the words, and all it said is "I'm ready." It just said it once, but I noticed that I was singing long, and then I am ready, I am ready, I am ready. I noticed that when I got to those words, I kept wanting to repeat them, and I knew, but I didn't know why. And then eventually, as I kept singing the song and as I kept recording it, I found myself singing, I am ready, I am ready, I am ready to fly. And I realized, and I was like, oh my God, I'm singing the song of the song has become the song of that moment of being ready. And then as I keep listening to it and listening to it and changing words that don't work for me, but not in a way of like, I've got to get it right, but just like, okay, this is what it is now. As I was listening last night, I actually felt that lift off.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I was thinking as you were speaking is I was teaching something really complicated yesterday to students. I was teaching them how to I was teaching a rhythm, and I'm often really nervous about teaching rhythms. But what I realized, and I realize this a lot of times, and I say it, but I don't always get it, which is it doesn't matter for you to get it right. Like it's almost better if you get it wrong, because then you take it off into your territory. So with my coach, I was trying to do it right. I was trying to do it the way she told me to do it. And then
I love that get it wrong. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I
it's
love
great.
that the liftoff that's unique to each of us happens when we get it quote wrong according to somebody else's way of doing it. I mean, that's so much the truth if we're going to really live into our true self and be the butterfly pollinator we are, is it's going to happen our way. It's not going to happen somebody else's way. maybe there are components that we can learn from them that become a part of our quote magic circle, but it's unique to each of us. And liftoff is that moment that no one can tell you how it's going to happen.
Right. So I know I wanted to deconstruct this because I know we said like
Mhm.
how to court, and
Mhm.
I'm hearing the words that you're saying are the strings of passion. I'm hearing it
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, and I'm hearing that you were the one who said this is liftoff, and
Mhm.
I was really realizing that when we deconstruct or when we take apart the way we think it's supposed to be, and we find out what's in there, even especially if we do it wrong, that is part of us connecting. Because
Right.
sometimes when we do it wrong, it's because we're doing some part of that thing in a way that really works for us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we can connect to that, like if somebody's trying to play this and they go, that's just another thing. And it opens up yet another world.
Yeah.
And then, that makes me realize this whole thing about there are infinite universes all the time. There are. So then going back to practices. So the strings of passion are impulse, structure, character, roles, practices, and practicing, deconstruction, and liftoff. And I saw that the practice that I took on was to put my goals into a form that is in which I could play with it and which
Right.
I could literally play it instead of executing it, instead of doing it right, instead I could play with it.
Right.
So let me ask you something, Kathleen, like where is a place in your life where or I'm asking other people who are here as well, where's a place in your life where maybe you're stuck, and what choice might you make to be able to play it or play with it, so that because I have it, when we play with it, it starts to open up.
Yeah, playing. And the psychoanalyst Winnicott talks a lot about the importance of play and analysis and the play in relationships and the play in our transformative processes. And play to me is an experimenting, and it's like putting puzzle pieces together. And recently I started playing with a new diet and exercise routine. Um, I had the courage. My husband pointed out I did this 2 weeks after Christmas, and that was probably not the best time. But I had the courage to do this, kind of body weight, body fat, muscle mass test, and so it gave me these recommendations.
It's always nice to start at a low point.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's okay. If it was 2 weeks after Christmas and I've been sick and hadn't exercised for 3 weeks, that means I'm going to make big gains because
Exactly,
anyway.
yes.
But I decided after I felt deflated that night, I thought, I'm going to make this a game. How can I play with this? And how can I play with, I mean, like, for instance, one of the things is that I tend to eat more plant-based diet, and it's told me I needed a lot more protein than I was getting. And so I thought, how am I going to start doing this? So, I kind of made it a game to research and learn what has so much protein in it. And then I've started kind of keeping a record and tracking. It's like putting the pieces together. Okay, I can get this many here and this many there. And, the same thing with some suggestions that made it on changing up my exercise routine. And I thought, you know what, Kathleen? You put a lot of time and energy into going to the gym and taking care of yourself. You cook a lot. That's important to you. And so why not up it? Why not use this as an
Mm.
opportunity to expand, to have a bigger foundation? And so I think for me, the play in that is really partly the attitude. It's a playful attitude. Instead of, as you said, it being about getting it just right or this is wrong, it has to be a different way. It's just like, okay, let's experiment and see what happens. Let's explore. Let's
Mm.
discover. Explore and discover. And I think that when we take on a practice, because you're singing and playing your goals, my having my little food diary and playing with combinations, when we take on a practice like that, then, as you always say, then the practice gets to us, something begins to change, you know, and it's an organic process. I always say that to people and who come into analysis, the processes of transformation are organic. I say that in my embodiment circle too. We can tend the processes, which to me is the equivalent of psychic gardening, or, building our psychic muscles is like going to the gym to build physical muscle. But when I go to the gym and I lift 10-pound barbells, it's not because I want to lift 10-pound barbells. It's because at some point I probably want to move a 20-pound bag of potting soil, or, I want to pick up a 25-pound bag of dog food or something. So, but the practice allows something to happen that shifts in a different area of our life.
Yeah. Well, while you were talking, I was thinking, the as we do something, I was getting excited because I was thinking, well, I'm about to do my first live retreat here in my home in July, and Shelley Fairplay, a wonderful harpist from UK, is going to come. So there's going to be two of us and a very small group of people, and we're looking at what it is that we want to offer in terms of, because there's lots of things, but as I speak to people, I realize that more and more people are like, I just want to be able to get on stage and play. I just want to be able to be present on stage and play. And I was thinking about games. I was thinking about all the games that my performance teacher played with us. And I was with a performance teacher that wasn't about harp. He was a mime. But there were many, many, many play games. And it just occurred to me as you were speaking, I was thinking, wow, what a wonderful game for the things that I'm struggling with, especially to just ask myself, okay, now do it wrong. Now do it wrong. And I was thinking there are infinite ways to do it wrong. How fun is that? And then the next thought was, oh, does that mean there are also infinite ways to do it, quote, right?
Mm.
In other words, there are infinite ways for anything. And what I loved about what you were talking about when you got excited about what you were saying, it was, hey, wait a second, I already love doing this.
Right.
Now wait a second, why am I trying to make myself into be somebody else? And now it's reminding me of when I started the harp. One of the things I gravitated towards, because I started as an adult, was it can make me look real. Like I look fake. As I don't even know what I am. I write musical theater. This can make me look, hello, I'm a real musician. Look at me. I can do something that people regard as real. Where did I come off on that? Oh, yeah. But I hit the ceiling on that. That thing, I wanted to have credibility in my own eyes. And, and then as my life has continued and continued and continued, eventually I'm getting back to basically who I was. But finally being able to live in that, but with the harp, which is great. So what am I saying here? Our question was how to court your own transformation. So what I'm getting, and I know we should look at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm getting, well, you got excited when you started talking about puzzles. You were, and I loved it. You were like, not what should I eat, but like, oh, I need this much protein. What are all the cool ways that I can do that? And that's exciting. And then when you told me, I was like, I'm thinking about that too. I could do that.
Yeah.
So we court, okay, we've talked about through play, but easier said than done. How do we play with things? One way to deconstruct that is, what are you doing that you could do wrong?
And the second way to do that is to, when the judge kicks in, to say, cancel, cancel. Because the judgment is the enemy of play.
Right. And so what helps me also when that criticism comes in is to think about, okay, find one thing to love here, and then go to that.
Yeah. I mean, in truth, sometimes we're just in a paradigm that if we stay in the paradigm, we just keep getting in the bigger rut. We just have to get out of the paradigm. And you're saying, what's the one thing I love, gets you out of the paradigm.
So by paradigm, you mean like it's a way of looking at the world, like it's a
way of looking at
filter.
the world. Yeah. Well, and your paradigm was, again, and now they can, it's a filter, and they can be big paradigms that are more
Mhm.
pervasive and smaller ones. You had a paradigm that the butterfly was worthless. You didn't say it that way, but it's like, what gets a butterfly? Well, you
Yeah.
found out, wow, these butterflies do these things that benefit the world. They keep us, they're part of what keeps us alive, the pollinators, you
Right, and
know?
it's not their fault that they look cool and that they, I mean, it kind of goes back. Oh God, it goes back to like one event. I think I learned to really dislike butterflies in one event in my life at
Oh,
one moment. It was one moment in a music writing class when I must have been 18 maybe. And oh God, the dynamic was so big. The the teacher of the class clearly had a crush on one of the people in the class. The person in that class wrote a song that said "A butterfly fluttered by," and I was like, uh, you know, how stupid is that? And the teacher said, "Oh, that's brilliant. I've never heard that." And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And so I think that may have been the moment that I was just like, you know what, butterflies suck.
yeah, yeah, you just gave us a beautiful example of how the poor butterfly just was the recipient of this anger and dismissal you felt from the teacher.
Right.
So then you got angry and dismissed the butterfly, and it really wasn't anything about the poor butterfly. This
Well,
is
what is
how
that?
things.
Just a dumb name. What is this name? That is a dumb name for an animal.
I wonder who gave them the name
Okay, all
butterfly.
right. Okay, I got to get over it. I got to find one thing to love here. Well, I
One
love
thing,
consonants. I do love consonants, and it's got some beautiful consonants in it. I love consonants together. So it's got the double T. It's got the B in the beginning, which is kind of fun. It's got the fl. You RFL. That's cool at the end, and you get to sing fly. So okay, so at least I can get over the name, maybe. I mean, and
and
maybe you
they're.
don't have to feel bad. Butterfly, 3 syllables. I mean, okay, I've got a long name too.
I,
All
I
right.
want to go back to courting transformation. Although I like the way that you're modeling for us finding one thing to love.
Okay.
Um, I think another way we can court transformation is to use the magic circle. And another name for the magic circle is a mandala. And throughout the ages, mandalas have been drawn by various people, including spiritual people, as a way of experientially remembering that everything's held together in a whole. So you draw a circle and you put you put words, colors, shapes that represent what's going on inside of you. And so I think we can court our transformation when there's something that, for instance, if we play with for a minute your goals, in your magic circle is your coach, is her telling you to do this every night. It's your saying, okay, I'll do it. It's then you're not doing it. And then it's, your love of music. Then it's your desire to get unstuck. It's your musings about the butterfly. All that goes in the magic circle and the mandala as a way of courting something to happen, just like the goo inside the chrysalis. It brings it together in a
Mm,
container, a
wow.
symbolic container, where then the unconscious processes can do something with it. You know, you can think of it. I mean, the other image that came to me is you can think of it as if you're making bread in your bread maker, and you put all the ingredients there in the bread pan, and then something happens. Processes work.
Well, what I got when you said this was really, I got for a moment. So I've been always asking, well, what happens? The caterpillar goes to goo, and the imaginal disc somehow together they become the butterfly. But in your speaking just now, what I got was until that moment, the imaginal disc was not accessible
Mm-hmm.
to that creature.
Mm-hmm.
Its transformation was
Right.
not accessible to it.
Right. That's right. Right.
Sorry, I'm also thinking, is this actually being recorded? I mean, it says it is, but I'm so used to people typing in and saying
Right.
things, and I'm not seeing them, and now I'm wondering if something is happening in the world. Oh, never mind, doesn't matter. Here we are, we're in this conversation. So, okay, wait a second. So what I heard you say when you talked about the mandala, first of all, as you were talking, I was also thinking, all right, so what happened for me? I was paying a coach who told me to do something that I didn't do, that I kept saying I was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
yet I didn't do. Then after a certain amount of time of sticking with it, I kept going to see the coach. I kept saying I'm going to do it and not doing it. She must have driven her crazy. I suddenly realized, wait a second, I'm not doing this. Maybe it's not me. The way I'm trying to do it is not me. What is me? What
Mm.
is my way? And this gets to our question, how do we court our own transformation? Not how transformation works for somebody else,
Right.
but each of us.
Right.
We're not the butterfly. We don't have this maybe
Right.
we do. Maybe we have this chemical thing that allows us to transform in a certain point of our lives. It happens different for everybody, but
Well, I mean, Jung believed that there is an individuation instinct.
mhm.
Individuation meaning the process of becoming whole. So he did believe there was an instinctive, and instinctive processes are biological as well as archetypal or spiritual. There's an energetic component that does work on behalf of our psyche in order to help us
I
expand.
see. So that's the natural way, and then
That's the
sometimes we
natural
get in the
way. Yeah.
we get in the way of that.
Yeah. One of the things you said that I want to highlight, and I know we're going to have to stop in
Yeah,
3 or 4 minutes, is that until that moment in time in the chrysalis, when it all kind of came together, the blueprint of the imaginal disc was not accessible.
correct.
It
It was
wa-
there,
it
but
wa-
not
it
yeah,
it it it, it wasn't able to flow out and affect.
right,
And at that in that being held in that container, the chrysalis, the magic circle, the
mhm,
mandala of sorts
right.
symbolically, organic processes worked that freed that imaginal cell. There's something happened where those things then began to influence one another. And it's in that influencing of one another that transformation happens. And so we court our
Mhm.
own transformation by getting together all that we know about ourselves, taking what bits of wisdom we may have learned along the way that we somehow can't implement, but we put it all together in that container with who we are, because it's your fire. Again, I just want to go back to emphasizing it was your fire, your motivation, which you connect with via music, that was the key to the shift. And
And
yeah.
the sharing, because as you're
Hmm.
speaking, I'm realizing, it is a factor of human of mammals or whatever,
Hmm.
that it requires two
Right.
different things in
Right.
order for that for life. And I'm seeing in my experience of my own transformation, it requires what I think, and then me sharing that, and then what other people say
Right.
back to me
Right.
from their experience.
Right. Yeah, because that's how we get out of our two little paradigms. That's how we see beyond what we're caught in.
Right, and it's not it the what I'm sharing, I mean, what she kept saying is, the best thing for you to share is where you're being inauthentic.
Mm.
And now I can see how that dynamic is, and I see that with the butterfly and the cat. What you said, the imaginal disc is there from the beginning in the caterpillar. It's always there, but it's not
Right.
accessible until that caterpillar goes to goo. And so I have that as its willingness to admit I'm not authentic. I'm not being authentic. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm pushing that too much. But the thing that I think is beautiful is it's called imaginal from imago. Imago being the whole, whoops, the whole form. You were talking about Jung saying go to wholeness. The
Right.
imago is the full form.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So what do I take out of it? Well, I take so much. I mean, first of all, I
Mhm.
hope it got recorded because I want to go back and listen to it. I'm really seeing the power of sharing. again, even
Mhm.
more. I'm seeing the value of doing it wrong, looking for any way to do something wrong so that I can start discovering my way into it. And I'm getting again how the goo gives access to the imaginal disc. So it's really about the access, and how teaching or learning anything, it doesn't matter. Even better to get it wrong, because then we find our way.
Yeah, and I'm getting the reminder to go back to what I know inspires and fuels me. If I want to do something different, just like with my diet and exercise program, I went back to the fire for me. And once I did that, then I could find my way forward with this information about what to do differently. So that's my biggest focus this week for my harp as well as for my other creative endeavors in my life, is that wherever I feel stuck, to stop and say, okay, but where's the fire? Where's my fire? And
Mm.
how might that inform this? How might that be shaped by my essence?
I love that, and I'm going to take that and puzzle it for myself by saying, where's my fire and where's my water? Since I love
Mm.
water so
Mm-hmm.
much, and just look for that. I'm already seeing in my mind's eye, and as you
Yeah.
were speaking, I was thinking, I love running, but I also love dancing, and I'm not doing that in ways that I want to, and that could make a difference.
Right.
So, Kathleen, thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
and thank you everybody who watches this and comments, and who watches it afterwards, and who lets us know how meaningful this is. And we're working now to get this out on podcasts, so hopefully that will happen
Yes.
very, very soon. Thank you, Kathleen. Will I
Okay.
see you next week?
Yes. See you next week.
Excellent. See